Our Enlightenment Method: Laserbiomerging. Imagine, all people worldwide have the guarantee option to live forever. As incredible as that sounds, no ego has died for centuries. Interested how that works? I am sure that this has been explained to you many times, but the next morning you have forgotten it. Statistically, this is normal. This happens to all the staff in the memory experiment on Earth. Living healthy, young, and comfortably forever has been a reality for a long time, and free of charge for everyone worldwide. This does not mean any religion or sect that promises you a bodiless existence as a spirit or soul in paradise, heaven, or in another dimension. But on the contrary, covert technology and artificial intelligence realize the following gifts of nature: body swapping into cloned replacement bodies. And to top it off, option endless life. After the wish I want to live forever, at the beginning there was the question: what is the ego consciousness? Viewed soberly, the ability to remember personally experienced everyday life, stored in a healthy brain. Experiments with animal training and head transplants onto other bodies supported this theory. Transfusion, oxygen-rich blood with the same K-point factor, and the surgical method, laserbiomerging, are indispensable. But body swapping alone does not mean eternal life. The zero-G space and the discovery of Holden, a natural phenomenon, presented us with new possibilities. At zero gravitation, protected from magnetic fields and radiation, all living beings can be stored lifeless seemingly indefinitely without changing biologically, that is, without aging. Bringing to life works in mammals with transfusion of oxygenated blood with same factor. Life can continue without disturbing side effects. Centuries ago, groups of scientists used the Holden for long-term studies of life and death. The colleagues do not age while they have to wait for results. Next advantage, the surgical interventions without time limit. Only for wound healing must be resuscitated with oxygenated blood transfusion. Results. At the age of 108, a vein burst in the human brain in the area of the temple and caused natural death. Early surgical replacement with younger blood vessels adds a few more years to lifespan, until leakage occurs elsewhere in the brain. But when the brain began to rot in places, the vein swapping method ended. Inspiration for a promising method came from the slaughterhouse. There they discovered the sensational effect of laserbiomerging during laser cutting tests. Limbs severed by a laser could be rejoined with lasers. The precisely positioned cutting surfaces were briefly pressed together lightly. Simultaneously, laser cut along the cut surfaces in less than a second. Organs, muscles, blood vessels, nerves grew together immediately. Bones were firm after 30 minutes. Even trying to tear the parts apart with great force didn't work. Attention, beware of the space curvature. Continuous wave lasers of perhaps 1 kilowatt are suitable for laserbiomerging. This power causes a space curvature as soon as it is switched on, which persists for a few minutes after the laser is switched off. Where the laser beam was, you can see a weak refraction of light similar to a thin glass rod. Danger of death: do not touch. The slightest contact with the curvature of space, which feels like a column of compressed air, leads to death if left untreated. Externally no injury is visible. Many transfusions of oxygenated blood of the same factor saved the life of the first space warp victim. The curvature of space in the body continues and withdraws electrons or life energy. This is known as outgassing. After minutes of agony characterized by shortness of breath and seizures, one dies of circulatory failure. As far as I know, an effective instrument against the curvature of space is ion radiation. Power-adapted ion thruster irradiate the work area shortly before, during and after laser operation. Space warp victims receive additional ion irradiation on top of the oxygenated blood transfusions, which are fewer in number because of the irradiation. The application of laserbiomerging to the brain was a resounding success until behavioral problems developed in the test animals. After about 22 days, they showed unnatural head shaking. Investigations revealed that microtumors had formed on the surface of the sections, which were responsible for nervous tics. The only and best strategy was to dissolve the microtumors with the laser again by repeating all laser cuts every 14 to 21 days. The idea of rejuvenating timely replacement for aging bursting blood vessels in the brain would only be justified as a method of life extension if the following revolutionary plan would fail. Fortunately, they were now able to split the brain wherever they wanted and put it back together with laserbiomerging. And it was known that at a very advanced age decomposing brain material ends life. If you do not want that, the brain must also be replaced as a preventive measure, reasonably without loss of ego. The exciting thought of having found the method for endless life motivated the research groups. The ability to remember everyday life with forgetting and learning form the individual consciousness, and that is only in the brain. Comparisons with the computer world provided the saving inspiration. The mind combines processor and memory loaded with perceptual feedback or memory, and forms ego consciousness. Rejuvenating replacement must have empty stores, then it has no ego of its own, only the potential to do so. This means that embryos must be grown in quiet rooms under heavy anesthesia until their brains reach transplantable size. Individually artificially fed and cared for by machines with AI for the best fit. The feedback-free brains are then flown to space 0G for inanimate storage. Assembled in Holden containers, protected from radiation and magnetic fields, the spare minds await the next surgically rejuvenated parts exchange. It was important for the option endless life surgery to explore whether all parts of the brain are replaceable. How much brain per stage of rejuvenation and how long to pause before the next transplantation of a feedback-free brain part, of course without loss of ego consciousness. Ideally, the patient should not notice this brain enhancement. During this time the ego transmission takes place imperceptibly. Sometime after about 90 years the whole brain was replaced. It was interesting that the test animals still mastered their training. The orangutan with a completely rejuvenated brain prepares its beloved daily coffee without being taught this technique again. His day-to-day feedback was sufficient for ego transmission to the younger parts of the brain. Immediately afterwards, brain enhancement was successfully implemented on the human thinking organ, including brain treatment, which must be repeated every 14 to 21 days. This epical victory over death happened many centuries ago. Now guarantee option endless life is realized for all people worldwide. Controlled and monitored by the underground high-tech world and the network world computer. Then misjudgments happened, leading to penalties contested by influential communities. A psychic plan should force a AI update. Ultimately, global memory experiments had to help the truth statistically win. For this purpose, existing historical simulations with cyborgs on Earth were used. A cyborg society acted there, representing communities that fought for the update authorization. Tasked to push their avatars into commonplace mistakes in order to have more arguments against the AI in court. The memory experiment got a false fantasy worldview of space and a medicine without oxygenated blood transfusion to camouflage the underground high-tech world. LCD screens simulate movement in space where there was none. Cyborg patients presented new prepared diseases. Double-staged healing successes and failures in equal measure. All necessary contact visits were done in secret via lift connections. Endless life in the underground high-tech world should remain secret in the memory experiment until AI statistically recognizes the truth. The fully supervised memory experiment. The world computer tested volunteers who had to lead a double life. They spent most of their time on Earth in the historical simulation, interrupted by short high-tech stays. They were used with work assignments for endless living infrastructure, Holden at 0G and vacations in the desired replacement body. The task was, testers had to try to keep their high-tech knowledge without clear notes. Sobering result, it was only possible with artificial memories, the recall sent to the scopal implant in the tester's skull. In addition, every 14 to 21 days, while they slept, they secretly received their brain treatment in the underground surgery machines. Case-by-case high-tech clarifications that had taken place before were forgotten in the morning after in the usual everyday life. Nevertheless, a reassuring result. Even without high-tech knowledge and therapy-free, the ego transmission functioned. So the psychics had predicted wrong. The following applies to biological persons. Worldwide and for centuries, there has not been a single true death. Catastrophes, illnesses, epidemics, accidents, crimes, and wars are worldwide artificial productions, completely monitored by the World Computer Network. Surgical machines with AI using laser biofusion method, oxygenated blood, and cloned embryos create cyborgs that can be born naturally. This simulates birth, life, and death according to the program. These artificial creatures are doable from the size of a wasp to a blue whale. To my knowledge, all injured and victims are cyborgs. These inconveniences were used for statistical research into natural memory and ego transference. It was tested whether these exotic therapy shocks, which are widespread in the media, helped to improve memory. Result, negative. These actions had helped take power away from the psychic communities. Do you want to help finish the memory experiment? Also curious about the underground high-tech paradise? Then please share this video. Last tip. According to my information, the experimental demonstration and publication of laser biomerging could have an accelerated effect on the completion of the memory experiments.